to the show. Danielle, Mercurius, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Hello, my gorgeous listener. You are so stunning today. Ooh, look at you. If you're near a mirror, take a little glance so you can see what I'm seeing right now. Ooh, yum, right? So good. So, what else is so good is tonight's episode. It is all about human design. Now, I will be honest. I never really got into the whole human design thing. And you may think, but Danielle, you're an astrologer and you're a spiritual teacher, and it just makes sense that you would be into human design too. And yes, you're absolutely right. However, whenever I would go and look to it, I mean, I'm a manifesting generator. So that made sense when I would like read the essence of, excuse me, what a manifesting generator is. It made sense. I'm like, yes, that feels good to me. However, when I would look at the actual design and the materials, it just felt over my head. It didn't feel intuitive. And for that reason, I didn't gravitate to it more, which is usually how I go about the spiritual tools that I use on my path: astrology, kundalini, channeling, past life, whatever it may be. There's some kind of in. And I explore that. Whereas human design, I never felt the in. While I could resonate with it and agree with it, it just wasn't quite my jam. And I did feel, though, that I needed to learn more because it is on the rise and more people are talking about it. And I feel like it's a disservice for me not to fully dive into human design. So I'm like, okay, if I'm going to talk about human design, or if I'm going to learn about human design, then I want to talk to a human design expert who is the real deal, who will really bring it in a way that is informative, expansive, and really high vibe. And that is exactly what happened when I found Erin Claire Jones. I actually found her through my friends at the Good Fest. They love her, so I knew immediately that I would love her too. It actually turned out one of our past guests, Brianna Goodman, who's a dear friend of mine that has been on the show, she's used her for her human design. So I was like, let's do the thing. And that's exactly what we did. You are in for a really amazing episode to break down the different types of human design. If you've never heard of it before, you're going to learn all about it. If you know what your type is, but you're ready to really understand it better, you definitely are going to. I'm telling you, since this episode recorded, I have been using human design terminology. Yes, me. I'm using human design terminology. I'm literally texting my friends and being like, what's your human design again? And then they tell me, I'm like, oh, or like I'm explaining a situation I had with someone. I'm like, oh, but they're a projector. And people are like, oh, of course. And I'm like, oh, this is the beauty of human design. So, like I said, you're in for a treat with this episode. It is with Erin Claire Jones, who is a leadership coach who specializes in human design. She shares more of her story throughout the episode. What she also shares is one of the services that she provides that we are giving a discount specifically to you, our listeners, if you want to learn more about human design. She has a blueprint that is essentially a really amazing tool that breaks down your human design. And we are offering that to you at a discount. You just have to use the word Danielle, all caps, Danielle, all caps, to receive the blueprint from Erin Claire Jones. And what this is a 30-page comprehensive guide to showcase how you're uniquely meant to move forward with your human design. It's beautiful. It's excellent. And the discount is just for you, my lovely, lovely friend. If you are digging this, hit me up on the Instagram, shoot me a DM, let me know what your human design type is. I'm really curious. I want to know more of who you are from this capacity. I want to know, are my listeners reflectors? Am I attracting a bunch of manifestors? Are you all generators? I want to know. So bop into my DMs, let me know what kind of human design archetype you are so I can get to know you better. And again, I'm a manifesting generator. Does that make sense? I think it does. All right, let's make more sense of all of this through tonight's episode with Erin Claire Jones. Hi, Erin. Welcome to the show.
Hi, it's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm so happy to have you as well. Most of my guests that I have on the show, typically I've met them before. We've had conversation in real time, and we just literally got to know each other 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I'm so happy we're connecting now.
Yeah, and we already realized we had a connection in that we were both born in Seattle.
I know. It's so honestly, I don't meet that many people that are born in Seattle, so I love hearing that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And then it's always when I do meet someone, I'm like, oh, but I was
I was
actually,
gone a week later.
yeah, it was just my birth arrival space.
So good.
For some reason, my soul just was like, you know where would be a good spot to start all this?
Yeah.
Seattle, and then we'll keep going. So I'm really excited to have you on for a few reasons. A lot of the work that I do is with astrology, and so I love astrology. I do astrology readings for other people. I have always just been a natural when it comes to that, and so of course, people always have questions like, "What do you think of human design?" and "What's your take on it?" And what's so interesting for me is it's one of the more spiritual concepts that for some reason doesn't come super naturally to me. Like I still have so many questions. It's not one of those things where I tend to be able to just sink into and it makes sense and it clicks. So I'm really excited to have you on just to broaden my own perspective and of course give our listeners who have a lot of questions around human design more perspective and to see how it benefits them.
Awesome. So cool. Such a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So how did you fall upon human design?
So I fell upon human design in 2015. I had come from the world of working in a lot of startups, and on the side, I'd always explored a lot of different modalities. And I was coming at it from this place of like, having worked with all these companies and with a very inspiring missions, but feeling like the teams themselves were a little bit dysfunctional and people just like didn't totally understand each other. And I think that I had always explored modalities that felt like a little bit just like out of the comfort zone of the company I was working with. It was unlikely for me to bring them in. And I was sitting at a party in the Lower East Side, for those who know New York, and this guy looked at my human design on his phone, who ended up being my first teacher and former business partner, and just started telling me all this stuff about myself that felt so right on and so intuitive, but also felt like stuff I'd never really actually fully allowed myself to step into or own. And so he just like piqued my interest in all the ways. And as he started to kind of introduce me to deeper layers of the information, I really became exposed to, how human design can be useful, not only on a personal level and supporting us in coming into greater alignment with who we are and what we're here to do, but also on a team level of like really helping people understand each other and work together in a more functional and productive and harmonious way. And I think that it just felt like a bridge. It felt like a system that I could not only bring to individuals, but that I could also bring to companies. And so I went down, quite a rabbit hole and path, and actually started building a company and working with him pretty immediately. But it's been a real journey. I think when I first started sharing and exploring human design in 2015, no one like had any idea what I was talking about.
No way.
It really wasn't. I was like in places also like Bali or Kauai where people would be like, oh, I think I've heard of this thing,
Right.
But in New York, they were like, what are you talking about? And it wasn't really until very early 2018, late 2017 that people just started like it gained a much like larger potential audience, and there was just much more awareness around it. And I think that it really, it's just been amazing. It's been a rocket ship ever since, because I think people are just getting more and more exposure and are more and more excited about it. So it's been wild to watch it all unfold.
Yeah, it is really fascinating. It's actually interesting you mentioned that time frame because I went back to look at when I ordered my human design chart, and it was in November of 2017.
Yeah.
So, and I was living in LA at the time. So, people were starting to buzz about it then. So, of course, I was like, I want to know more about it. So
I'm sure you were such an early adopter too. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I feel like I was late in the game, but I guess technically it's considered a little bit more earlier. And, I was definitely fascinated. And we'll talk more about my own chart and kind of the personal connection to it. But I also have heard stories around like human design, how it was derived. Like someone just like was in a house all weekend and developed it. Like I hear all these crazy stories. So like, tell us where this like came from.
It's such a crazy story, and it's especially fun to share it at companies. But I think that
right, this is legit. I swear.
It's just like own it. I mean, it's a wild story. It was basically channeled, and what happened is there was this guy who had formerly been an advertising executive in Montreal. His name had been Alan before, and he was in Ibiza, just like taking some space in his life. And he was walking home one night to his home, and basically heard a voice, and the voice said it's time to work. And so for 8 days and 8 nights, he channeled the system, meaning it just literally came through him. It was like nothing he had experienced with before. And then he spent the next 20 years or so building it out. And he's no longer alive, but he kind of really gave us the roots of what the system is. And there are like, so, I mean, you probably discovered this, but there are just like so many layers and so much depth, and it really is a lifelong study. And it's wild. It's definitely not a system that came from like us analyzing humans. It's because I think the magic of human design is it is based on your exact time, date, and place of birth for those new to it. But it not only helps us kind of understand the parts of our personality and who we are that we're conscious of, but it also kind of reveals all the things that we are unconscious of and not aware of, and kind of just like all the energetics underneath the surface and how to kind of weave it all into one picture of who we are.
It's amazing. So he worked on this for 20 years. When did he pass or cease his work?
I don't remember exactly when he died. It was, I think I can check. I think it was in the early, would be 2000s would be my guess, or just like in the past like 10 or so years.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, I can check.
Oh, it's cool. I just always
no, I'm
love
curious.
Kind of okay, yeah. I was like, I always like connecting the dots of when things derived, and then and that's the astrologer in me too, right? Like I always love looking up dates to be like, okay, what were the influences that day?
Yeah, he died in 2011.
2011. Oh,
and human design has been around since 1987. That's when he first channeled it.
Okay, very cool. So he passed right before what I believe to be the dawning of the Aquarian age. Interesting.
So wild. Yeah.
I love that, actually. Cool. So then he did that, and then literally he just had students and individuals that were following his work that have now been able to branch it out.
Yeah, and it's honestly so far beyond, I think, the people that worked with him directly, because I think that there's a new wave of people sharing human design in a new way. I think a lot of like my teachers and the initial people I studied with and were sharing it, and especially the people that were really sharing it when I started in 2015, it was just like very like cloaked in this kind of like esoteric language and a little bit inaccessible to people. And so I think that there's a new era of people that are just like a little bit more flexible and fluid. And like my intention with human design, like when I first discovered it, I'm like, this system is amazing, but no one's gonna have it. Like it's just it's so limited who it can like really have an impact on, because the language is not as empowering, or I think as accessible as it could be. So my like intention has always been how to translate human design in a way that really is practical, transformational, super simple for people. And so I think that there is this, a new range of people that are sharing it in a new way. And I think that's part of what's really accelerating its growth everywhere.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And it's really important that we do that, because first of all, it isolates people if we don't modernize the language and we keep it kind of, in this prior text. And I agree with the whole concept of how can we identify the essence of what this is and translate it in a way that people will be like, oh, that speaks to me today. That speaks to me in my current role, my current way of being, and allow these systems to evolve as our society evolves.
100%, and especially within the work at companies, I did like 2 sessions yesterday with like people whose boss bought them the sessions. Like I'm doing it for everyone on their team, but like they would never have touched this stuff. They're like, my birth information, like, why do you need that? But like the information itself can actually be so grounded that they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is so me. This is so useful. But I think that like some more traditional interpretations might have like been like too esoteric for them.
Right. Absolutely. Because I mean, I guess in the corporate world, they're more prone to like Myers-Briggs and just kind of all these other different assessments. And so this one being derived from the birthday, it's kind of like, yeah, wait a minute. What do you need that for? Don't you want me to just take like some kind of quiz?
I know. It's so cool though, because I think that like, I find the skeptics are the ones that end up loving it the most.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Because they're just like, oh, it's so specific. It's so me. And like, wait, this shows up with my daughter. And like and it's just like, as long as they're open to growth and are receptive humans, it tends to resonate on such a deep level. Like the only resistance I've really had is like one person who is just like so rigid in their ways that they weren't even open to another way, even though their way was not working.
Of course. And I'm sure that was probably part of what was coming through anyway in the reading.
Yeah, totally.
So that makes a lot of sense. So when you say that you need so why do you need the birthday for human design? What is that connection?
So the idea with human design is that it's a quantum system. So it pulls from a lot of different systems. So it pulls from astrology, the Kabbalah, the I Ching, the chakra system, quantum physics, genetics, like biochemistry, all the things. And so basically depending on like where we were born and at what time, it is kind of our imprint based on where the planets are, what was going on. Like that's kind of just like our blueprint, and it kind of just gives us like our natural system, operating system, and then we kind of choose how to use it in our lives. So it is similar to astrology in some ways, but it often takes into account like different calculations than astrology does, and astrology plays like one piece. And if you actually look at the human design chart, you'll see kind of like, you'll see the astrology pieces, but you'll also see like the tree of life from the Kabbalah. You'll see kind of the evolution of the chakra system. So it kind of like takes pieces from all of them.
Which I like, because again, as our society evolves, and also too, you look at so many other aspects of our society with relationships and diversity and whatnot. Of course, let's diversify these texts and start to bring them together. That's kind of how I see it too when I look at my chart. I'm like, oh, cool. Like the chakras and astrology do have a place for each other, and like they do want to be friends, and there is a way for all of these systems to coexist. That's kind of what I feel when I look at human design.
100%, and they all carry different value. But again, there's cool ways where it's like, oh, it actually draws from all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he channeled it, he's like, this is a quantum system. It's like kind of the first like system that groups them all together, but there'll be more.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, okay. So another question with the birthday part. So like, let's say you find, like if someone's born on the same day, are they automatically going to have the same chart? Or so
No.
What else does it pull from?
So it pulls from like the location is very much around the time zone, but it pulls from the very specific time.
Okay.
And so like, if you're born in the morning, it might be very different than if you're born an hour later or 2 hours later, or like, in the evening. And
Mm-hmm.
so it is that like having that exact time is very huge, like very important. I think if people have a range, if they're like afternoon 1 to 3 p.m., I'll kind of take a look and see how much it shifts during that range.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it can shift a lot, other times not so much.
Right.
And just for context, like there are about like 2 billion different configurations. So like the magic of human design is in the uniqueness. It's just that like we've all got kind of very different configurations. Like I've worked with I think like 2,500 people at this point, and like I've never really looked at like charts that are exactly the same.
Right.
They're ones that can be similar on the surface, but it just keeps getting more and more unique and differentiated as you go deeper.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, one of the most popular things that is shared around human design is the different types. Would you be able to share where the types came from and what each one is?
Of course. So highest level in human design, there are 5 different types. So we have manifesting generators, projectors, reflectors, and manifestors. And so you are a manifesting generator.
I am.
Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so manifesting generators are the ones, they make up the majority of the population. These are the people that have the energy and the life force to kind of build and create and make things happen. Most important thing in the world is that you're really doing work that is deeply satisfying to you, because when you're kind of using your energy every day in a way that feels good, you're basically creating and lifting up the energy of everyone around you. And so you're kind of meant to wake up in the morning with like a full tank of energy to kind of use your energy in super satisfying ways, and then kind of crash and wake up recharged. If you go to bed and feel super restless, it's because you like haven't actually exhausted your tank or your energy, or if you feel depleted, it's often just because you're not using your energy in the correct way. In terms of the difference between the two, manifesting generators often thrive when they have their energy in a lot of things at once. So for you, it's not about just doing one thing, but about being multi-passionate and allowing yourself to be stimulated. And so often these people have been made to feel scattered or that they're doing too much, but like they need that stimulus. Like I can't tell you how many clients I worked with that have like a traditionally great job, but they're like, I am so bored.
Yes.
I need more. Like I need to also be a yoga teacher and an actress. Like they need all the things, and that is their magic. And like one other piece I'll share, and then I'd love to hear your experience of it, is that often manifesting generators, like their gift is really that of efficiency, so they can move very quickly and they can see kind of the quickest, most efficient way to get somewhere. But in doing so, they can also like skip some steps along the way and drop some balls. And so like, so important for you to have the right support around you, people that can kind of handle that step-by-step, more mundane process, so you can kind of be in that powerful and creative flow, and find the people that are really lit up by kind of mastering the process piece.
Mm-hmm. Yep, spot on.
Yeah, does that land with you?
It does. I mean, I never liked working the 9 to 5. I never understood it. I'd be fine at it. And even I would say the best job I had in a 9 to 5 was being an executive assistant, because that still gave me flexibility. Like I could assist more than one person. I could have, different tasks within that role. But then when I moved to be self-employed, I mean, right now I have this podcast. I'm a coach. I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher. I'm an astrologer. I'm a speaker. I'm a stand-up comic. I'm a meditation teacher, right? Like
you're a traditional MG.
Yeah. And I'm not done anytime soon. And however, what I'm really experiencing, especially now that I'm at almost at the 5-year mark of being self-employed, I'm noticing where I've created a lot of shortcuts, and I've kind of dropped the ball, or even I will say like left money on the table because I move so quickly. And so, what I've really been working on this past year is bringing in proper support, finding the people that understand that this is, and I make it very clear, like, I am all over the place. I am not going to just do one thing. So,
Yeah.
Can you support me through this? And really working on finding ways to have individuals come in to support me and this process, but also do things on the back end that just don't light me up anymore and aren't the best use of me.
And I love that because it's like you honoring your process. It's like, this is how I thrive. Like, this is what I really need to be excited and stimulated. And I need the people around me that help me do that.
Yeah.
So it's so cool. And the thing is, it totally is feasible sometimes within a job. Like I did a session a couple of days ago with a manifesting generator who's an investor, and like she's able to like be in all parts of the business, work with so many different people. So she can kind of have that stimulus in one area, but she's still feeling confined, And so it's so of service to everyone for you to actually pursue like being the comic and the astrologer and doing all the things at once. And that's going to kind of contribute. And one other piece I would share is that like, it doesn't all have to make sense together. You know what I mean? I just feel like, what'd you say?
Thank you for that.
Well, I just feel like so often, like in so many of my sessions, manifesting generators are like, okay, but like, I still need to figure out how to like weave it into one story. It's like, no, you don't. Like someday it might make sense, but like, that's not the goal. It's not about like, this is the one cohesive thing I do. It's actually like, I actually thrive because my things are like so not cohesive, and like what connects them is just me and what I have the energy for. So just
yes. Yeah, no, I'm glad you add that too, because it can be frustrating as a manifesting generator and some of my other manifesting generator peers. I know we have trouble sometimes articulating to people what it is that we do, or even bringing in support. I've been finding like someone's like, well, tell me more about your brand. Tell me more about your ideal client. Tell me more about your big picture for next year. And I'm like, I can't.
Yeah.
Like totally. I can and I can't,
So, exactly.
Yeah.
And one other piece I would just share for both of those types is that their strategy in terms of how they're meant to like really cultivate opportunities and relationships for themselves is just magnetism. Like you're just really meant to allow life to come to you and kind of tune into your gut to actually know what you're available for and what you're not.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
So then we have
I want to hear about the
projectors. Okay. So projectors are basically the people that are really here to kind of be our leaders, our guides, our teachers. These are people that don't have the same kind of consistent access to energy as someone like you or a generator might. And so it's really learning for them that their gift is just not in how much they do, but it's really in the way that they see the world. These people often make really good coaches, therapists. They can make people feel incredibly seen or recognized, or even CEOs or managers, because they're so wise about energy and people and can really kind of know how to manage a team and leverage resources effectively. So I think for them, really honoring the ebbs and flows of their energy and not trying to keep up. Like the joke, but kind of reality for these people is that they're meant to work like 3 hours a day. And like, I'm a projector. I know that like I work a bit more than 3 hours a day right now, but mostly because I love it so much. But I think it's really honoring the ebbs and flows, where it's not like, okay, I've got to just like push myself and work an 8-hour, 9-hour, 10-hour day, whatever it is. But just like, I'm going to really honor the energy when it's there, and I'm going to really rest when it's not, and kind of build in those breaks and those naps and that kind of space away from people to reconnect. And the strategy for us as projectors is basically to wait to be recognized and invited in.
Okay, yes.
And I think when I first, so it's basically because you bring something so unique to the table, you need someone to really recognize you and kind of in a very authentic way and invite you in to share it. I think when I first discovered this, I was just like, oh my God, this sounds so passive. Like, how am I going to build a business? How am I going to be successful? And I think it's been really important learning that like my work is to make myself visible and available for recognition, to kind of share super authentically and broadly who it is I am and what it is I do, so the right people can find me and, resonate with me and invite me in to share it.
And it feels like it's working for you.
It is working for me. I would say my first iteration of my human design business, when it was like a little bit early, people were not ready for it. I was very like, I felt insecure, and partly because I was like working with a partner and we were doing it all together. I just like putting myself out there felt scary. And like our approach was very much like, we're going to reach out to these specific companies and people, which is like not really the visibility approach, and like even on Instagram, I was like, I would write human design, but I would like never share anything about human design. And when I started this iteration of my own company, my partner was like, you got to tell them what you do, and so my approach has been so much more successful because it's been like, I'm going to share so broadly about who I am and what I do through the talks I give, through my newsletters, through Instagram, and just like not in a super salesy way, but just trust that when I do that, the right people will find me. And my work is just to make myself visible and available, and like everything else will happen when I do it. And it's been so fun because like the people that come to me like you, they're just like, oh, I like her. I want to talk to her, and
Right.
it's not me just like pitching myself and being like, see me, because that's often going to probably push you away a little bit more. So,
Oh, totally. If you did that, I probably would have been like,
no, thank you.
Well, do you just go in that special file in my inbox where I send all of those emails?
Yeah, and it's not even to say that projectors like can't put themselves out there, because like I definitely do that sometimes too, just to play with it. Like I think no, as a projector, the invitation is not meant to limit you. I have
Okay.
people that are like, oh, I like gotta just sit back and do nothing. It's like sometimes I'm like, what happens if I reach out? Like, but do it in a way where it's not like I want to be on your thing or do this. It's more just like, hi, I exist. And sometimes we're like, oh my God, you exist. I've been looking for you, And so just like, playing around with it, because I think that I never want it to feel like it's limiting for people.
Yeah, I love this. And for any of the projectors that are listening, like this feels like a relief to,
Yes.
like, oh, I can lean back. I'm allowed to just continue to do what I love and find a way to, like, I love what you said around, I'm going to create an invitation through my visibility. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and then lean back from there. And I really like that process. And I'm sure, again, for any projectors listening, they can feel a little bit of relief, and like, you don't have to try so hard. You don't have to push.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just like remember that like your gift is not in how hard you work or how much you do, and your biggest shadow is going to be doing too much. You know what I mean? So like most projectors think that we're like super generators, because like often with generators and manifesting generators, like they have this amazing energy, but they also like often know when it's gone. My
Yeah.
guess is that you probably like when your energy's done, you're like, got it,
Mm-hmm.
day's over. But like for
Clear.
projectors, we don't know that.
Oh.
So we just keep going and going and going, because we're like amplifying everyone else's energy. Like I'll be responding to emails at like 10 and my partner's like, Erin, what are you doing? I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
is it time to stop? So
Oh,
I think just like our biggest shadow is not knowing when enough is enough. So kind of really learning how to pull away from other people's energy and know when to stop.
yeah. Okay.
Then we
Amazing.
manifestors.
Mhm.
So manifestors are, these are the people that really are here to just like do it, get things started, make things happen, make the first move. Like they're really here to initiate. And they often need a lot of freedom and autonomy and control. Like where these people can be the most challenged is if they're like being told what to do or feel kind of controlled or contained in any way. So they often operate best like if they're working for a company where they have a lot of autonomy
Mhm.
and they're not being told what to do, or if they're working for themselves, they can kind of be very innovative and see the future and feel like everyone else is just like a little bit behind the times.
Mm.
Their strategy is all about initiating. So they're really here to make the first move, but it's also about informing. And what I mean by that is it's really useful once these people have made a decision to do something, to reflect on all the people that decision is going to impact and make sure they let them know. It's not
Mm.
about explaining themselves or even about asking for permission. And you have got a tinge of this just because you're you have like a
Mhm.
manifesting quality of just making sure you're like keeping people abreast of what you're choosing, because it basically just allows you to move through life with a little bit more ease. And the last piece I'd share about manifestors is that they've got a very powerful, impactful energy. And my encouragement to them is always to really be unapologetic in who they are, because they're meant to be a little bit polarizing. And like by that, I mean like they're meant to really inspire some people and perhaps trigger others just because
Yeah.
they've got such a powerful energy about them. And so often these people won't feel permission to be as powerful as they are. So they kind of like sit back and like and dim their light or end up in a people pleasing place or asking for permission. So really kind of just like owning who they are and trusting that by doing that, they're going to attract all the right people.
Yeah. Are manifestors more few and far between?
9%. It's a low.
9%. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
yes. And you often can feel them. Like
Yeah.
they all like all the types of different energetic signatures. Like for
Mm.
generators and manifesting generators, it's super like open, enveloping, magnetic. You're up pulling everything to you.
Mhm.
As projectors, we're super penetrating. We penetrate into
Yeah.
people and we make them feel super seen and recognized. But if they're not ready for it and they haven't invited us, they might literally back away. Which is
Mhm.
why we need the invitation. And then
Mhm.
manifestors, it's a little bit more protected and selected. They're kind of like only really allowing in the right people, and it's by initiating that they kind of open up their energy.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, this all makes a lot of sense. Okay, so then there's reflectors.
Reflectors. So that's about 1%. So the smallest percentage. And so these people are they're ones that are a little bit harder for me to identify. It always makes sense when I know who they are, but
Okay.
they're only because their like energetic signature is sometimes changing. They're kind of always sampling different things. These are people that are incredibly sensitive to their physical environment, and they're always mirroring back their environment. So they basically are always kind of just like taking in their space and
Uh-huh.
reflecting it back to us. And so you can get such insight into how a community is doing, how a company's doing just by how a reflector is showing up in that space. And so one of the best things they can do is choose to be in places that feel good to them, because it's going to infiltrate and impact them in such big ways. So making sure their office feels good, their city feels good, their home feels good. Their identity is always adapting, which I was saying is part of why it's hard to always know exactly who they are, because over the course of a month, they're going to have periods where they feel like a manifesting generator, like a generator, like a projector, like a reflector, like a manifestor. And so it's just like owning the ebbs and flows of their energy and honoring their fluidity, and not trying to put themselves into one box. In the context of partnership, being with people that honor that fluidity, you know? And then the last piece I would share is that these people are such powerful observers. They like often can just see things that other people miss. And so whenever I've had a reflector on my team, I'm literally asking them questions all the time. I'm like, what do you think about this? And what about this? You know, just because their evaluations are always so on point, and just they're recognizing things that so many people miss. And so it's so useful to kind of have that perspective around.
Right. Okay. This makes a lot of sense. So one of my best friends, she's a reflector. And
Cool.
yeah, it was funny. I was texting her right before the show, and I was like, oh, I'm having this, Erin on, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, I already bought one of her blueprints. I was like, oh, cool. So I was like, perfect. And I was like, let me know if you have any questions. So I do have a question from her, but now that I thought that was awesome. And now that you're sharing a little bit more, it makes so much sense, because we actually we don't live in the same city. But we saw each other a couple weeks ago in Florida, and it's so true. Whenever I'm with her, I feel like it's such a mirror. Like I feel like everything we talk about, I just feel like it's like it bounces off of her and lands back to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I always feel more magnetic after spending time with her, and I feel more like she's able to hold space for whatever it was that we somehow talked about, and then I just shift higher from there. It's really interesting.
So cool. And that also is a good reflection of where you are, because I think that she's mirroring back to you where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
And so I often hear in partnership, if like someone's dating a reflector, they're like, if I'm doing great in my life, it's like the relationship's great, but like if I really have low self-esteem, or I'm in a job that I don't really enjoy, like they're going to mirror that back to me too. And so it can be confronting in such a powerful way, as long as you do the work on yourself to make sure that like you're showing up in a way that feels in integrity and in alignment.
That's true. Actually, when both of us are doing the work and are kind of in our quote unquote best selves, our relationship is pretty awesome. And then other times it's like we take little breaks. I mean, I don't even realize that we're taking breaks. So yes,
like, I gotta go resolve myself. I'll be back.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Well, one of the things that she was asking, she said that with reflectors, and she hasn't been able to find anyone to answer this, is that it's advised that you use the lunar cycle to make decisions. So you should wait to make a decision after a 20-day lunar cycle has passed. And she wasn't sure what truth there was to that. And further, what if you do have to make a fast decision and you don't have time to wait out the lunar cycle?
Yes. Okay. So everyone in human design will have a different authority. We call this the inner authority, and it's how you're designed to make decisions.
Okay.
And so reflectors one is so unique. I'm always like, is this real? And then every reflector I talk to is like, it definitely is. The idea is that for the big decisions for reflectors, they're meant to give themselves like a full 20, 30 days before they commit to a decision. And the intention of that is they kind of need to sample a decision from all different angles and kind of just perceive it from all these different ways before they know it's totally correct for them. And there's this cycle that they go through every month that kind of offers them all those different perspectives. Here's the thing. It might not always be possible to wait 30 days. So I think it's more about, when possible, definitely do it. But two, like, make sure you're in environments and around people that are not rushing you or hurrying you to make a decision. You know what I mean? And like for those small decisions, like, trust your intuition, trust what you're getting in the moment. But like for those big decisions of like moving to a new city, taking a new job, entering a relationship, like give yourself that time to really feel into it. And like one very specific example I have is I had a reflector client a few months ago, and they can really like take on and be excited by other people's identities among a bajillion other things. So she met this photographer, and she was like, oh my God, I want to be a photographer. Like she was so just like excited by his excitement that she was like, I'm in, this is my career. Let's go. And then 3 weeks later, she's like, I'm actually done with this and I would like to move on to the next thing. But like, she just needed those 3 weeks to really sample it and like confirm to her that like the more she got into it and got away from his energy, she realized it wasn't the right thing for her. And so I just think that like I would recommend for your friend, like, and it's explained more in the blueprint, but like give her as much time as possible. And also just like, I would encourage her to like take some time to disconnect from other people's energy, because I think that like she's so available to other people's energy, and she wants to make sure that she's not making decisions from those places. And
Mm,
so really spending time in alone or spending time in nature, like things that can kind of just reconnect her to exactly where it is she is,
yeah,
exactly where she is.
that makes a lot of sense. And from what I know, it feels like intuitively she's already doing all of that. So,
Totally. And
mhm.
that's honestly what I love about human design is that like I'm so rarely telling people stuff that they don't know.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
it's often stuff that they're like, oh yes, wait, that is me. And you know what? I've never allowed myself to step into that. I'm like, oh, that is actually what makes me unique. I always thought everyone could do that, you know? So there's just a sense of like relief and permission. It's never about telling people stuff that they're just like, oh, this feels so unfamiliar and strange.
Mhm.
And I have to write it down to remember it. They're like, oh yeah, you're right. I've always like resisted this, but I know that this is the right path for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I'm glad we're touching on this for any type of, I mean, I think human design, I find it with astrology, any type of reading or session where you're opening up into more insight into who you are, it should feel intuitively affirming. And if you're just not getting that hit, if it's not resonating, it may just
Mhm.
be the person presenting it to you. It just may be there's some resistance that you may be feeling, but overall know that the overarching feeling should be resonance. And maybe it won't happen
Yes.
immediately, but maybe it'll happen in the next few days. Or I always find that, things will happen immediately and it'll resonate. I'm like, yes, this is right on. And then other things I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. And then, the evidence will start to come or my intuition will start to click in. So something to
Mhm.
realize. I think sometimes, if people haven't had a session or they're nervous, they don't know what to expect. I think that's a good piece to take on.
Yeah. And I think that's great advice. I just think that like it's also like really taking your time with it,
Mm,
and I think often like the people that I work with that are really skeptical, like they're just like, I don't know, this like doesn't make sense. Why would I get all this information from my birth information? But it resonates so deeply. So this feels
right.
right. And I think that like my business partner is a skeptic, which is so useful for me because it kind of keeps me grounded.
I'm sure.
But he's very much like, you know what, Erin, like what matters to me is that like the system is helpful and it's helping a lot of people.
Hmm.
And so I think just like reminding people of that, like it's meant to empower you. And so like if it feels limiting or disempowering in any way, like release it. And maybe it's just not being framed in a way that you really understand.
Hmm.
But know that like it's meant to empower you and also just because I like tell you you're a manifesting generator, like does not mean you have to operate like one. But
Sure.
often like you're gonna find so much more success and satisfaction when you do. And because you already know yourself, you already know that.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it feels way better to operate under that. And again, because
Yeah.
it resonates. As soon as I remember, back in November of 2017, when I pulled it all up and it was so new to me, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
no, this feels true.
Totally.
It
And
just,
like, yeah. One other piece I was just going to share quickly is that so one of my offerings, which your friend ordered, is this like 30-page PDF that I put together on people's designs. And
mhm.
the idea is that it's just kind of a resource manual. This woman was so sweet today where she sent me a message where she's like, Erin, I literally have it like printed out on my coffee table.
Oh,
And like every day I just like open it to a new page. And I'm like, oh, this is what I'm gonna like work with today. And I'll see what resonates. And like I have people that received it 2 years ago and they're like reaching out now. They're like, okay, I read it again this week and like this new thing came out. So just like I think that it's so about like what we're available for at the moment. And I think
yes.
with human design, there's just gonna be like new pieces that just keep revealing themselves.
Yeah, which makes sense because as we continue with this life and we evolve and things happen and circumstances change, the way that you look at your chart, the way that you look at the blueprint that you created, et cetera, is going to show you different things that you wouldn't have even literally seen in other
Yes,
times,
exactly.
which is so fun.
Exactly.
So, how can individuals can get the blueprint from your website? Yes.
Yeah. And we can also do discount code for your audience if you want. But
Yeah.
it's from my website that it's just erinclairejones.com/blueprint. And so it is, I make them all at this point, but it is just this written guide to your unique design. And it's kind of meant to give you all the pieces you need about your design to get started because it can just be hard to like wade through all the information online and in books. And a lot of people like don't want to read a 300-page book on human design. They want to understand how it can be useful to them.
Hmm.
So that's the intention of kind of giving people all the most important pieces so they can really integrate it into their lives.
It says like the cliff notes of human
It's
design.
the cliff notes of your human design.
Of your personal human design. I love
Right.
it. Okay, cool. We'll put the promo in the show notes so people can snag it. It's really helpful. I mean, literally the fact that my friend was like, "Yeah, I ordered a blueprint from her. I love it." Like, of
Oh,
course you did. So good. We love
so
that.
good. That makes me
Uh,
so happy.
yeah, of course, of course. So you said you're a projector. What I'm curious what your partner is.
So my partner's a generator.
Okay. How does
So
that go?
It goes well. Thank God that we understand what's going on.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that I love working with partners, whether it's business or romantic, because I think we so often get tripped up when we, expect someone to be different than what they are,
Hmm.
or even more similar to us.
Hmm.
And so I think for us, like our designs are just different in every way that they could be different. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
that it is so, and we were friends for a long time before we ever started dating. So like we really knew each other, but I think it's been so useful because I think that like, honestly, if we didn't have the language, it'd probably be a bit more challenging. And like human design just like gives us a language and framework to understand all the things we already know. And like, to get more specific, it's like, I need like a lot more rest and, my energies and ebbs and flows, whereas he's just like a powerhouse generator. Like he's here to like build and create
Hmm.
and do, and like thank God for him.
Sure.
But like, even in like a small example, when we travel to a new city, like we land and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go walk and explore. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do it too. And he's like, no, 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 no. Like you've got to go lay down. Like I always have to like lay down for a couple hours right when I land. Like he's just like so good at encouraging me to like really listen to my body. I know that like my energy is so not infinite and like neither is his, but he's got it more consistently than I do. And like knowing that I really need the rest and relaxation, especially when I travel, which is a lot.
Hmm.
And then like, another small example is that like he makes decisions based on his gut response, similar to your design, which means he kind of has a knowing in the moment based on how it feels in his gut to know whether or not something's correct for him. Whereas I have to go through a whole emotional process and like have to feel into things and sleep on things. And it's just so useful because I think otherwise I would probably make myself wrong for the indecisiveness or the uncertainty in the moment. But
Uh-huh.
now I just like know how to leverage. He just walked past, so funny. Now
Hi.
I just know how to
Oh,
leverage.
hi.
Hi. So now I know how to leverage his gut response. And also he knows how to be like patient with like just the fact that I go through this emotional process and there's not always a truth in the now. And
Hmm.
like one other small example I'd share because it's been so powerful in our relationship is when we look at our human design chart, we can basically see all the areas in which we are most sensitive to other people's energy and also all the areas in which we broadcast out our energy into the world. And so like one of the areas in which he's the most sensitive is he's like a hyper empath where he similar to you
Hmm.
can like kind of just like feel everyone else's emotions and probably experience it as an amplified way and more intensely than they do.
Hmm.
Whereas like an area in which I broadcast out my energy is my emotion. So like if I'm in a low, people are going to feel it. If I'm on a high, it's going to be fun for people. And so it's been so helpful to know in that dynamic because like when I'm on a low or going through an emotional wave, he's now like, I know that this is your experience. I'm not going to personalize it. So I'm just going to actually give you some space because I'm not going to go into it with you because I know it's not even about me,
Yeah.
and I know it's just like a chemical process that you go through. And so I think that's been so useful because I think probably historically we would tried to like figure it out, or he would have been like, I've got to go understand it with you. And now we're just like going through an emotional wave, see you in a couple hours.
Yeah.
So just
That's
so many ways that's kind of made our relating so much easier and more harmonious.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I feel like that is huge in relationships and having this information to create a dialogue, to create communication,
Yes.
where if you didn't have that, the relationship may not be as strong, or you may think, maybe this isn't going to work for us. But it was,
Totally.
just using this tool can create some really powerful shifts.
Yeah, and it just like helps us really understand ourselves and the people around us. And I have so many people that order blueprints for their parents and for their team and for their sisters and for their boyfriends and girlfriends and partners. And it's just so cool because they're like, okay, I understand myself. Now how can I better support the people around me?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so good. Okay. So you had mentioned, I mean, there's so much and we're not going to get to all of
I know,
this today.
there's no way.
There's just not. And trust me, I was realistic about that. So you did mention briefly when we were talking about reflectors of the inner authority. And that's a
Mhm.
part that always I'm curious about. So can you share a little bit more about what that means?
Of course. So I'm glad you asked because it's such an important piece. So the inner authority, and if you want to look up your human design, I'm sure we can link something in the show notes, but the my website is erinclairejones.com/lookup, but there are also a lot of different potential websites you can look it up on. But if you look it up, you want to look at your inner authority, and that's just kind of how you're designed to make decisions.
Hmm.
And it's such an important piece to really integrate into your life. So some examples of the different ones are some people like you are sacral, which
Yes.
means like it's all about your gut response in the moment. And it's interesting, there's so much talk out there about like follow your gut, trust your
Hmm.
gut. And the thing is, we don't all have a gut response,
Hmm.
and so this is just like honor your gut if that is your authority. But if it's not yours, like, find out what yours is. So you're definitely meant to trust that kind of visceral gut response in the moment. Like if you're not getting a full body yes, it just means it is not the right thing or it is not the right time yet.
Right.
And so
Or,
you,
or
yeah,
or
go
I
ahead.
get very sick. I would say if I don't, then I wind up with a stomach virus or
Exactly. If you're not listening to your gut too, it can just manifest in a lot of physical ailments in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And also like in terms of accessing your gut response, it can be really helpful for people to ask you very specific questions. So instead of asking an open-ended question, like, where do you want to go for dinner? Or like, what do you want to do tonight? I would ask you like, do you want to go out or do you want to cook at home? Like, would you like to go to this gathering or do this thing? Just kind of like specific questions that bypass your mind and get you straight into your gut.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel connected to your gut?
I do. It's been a process.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I do realize that there's a lot of power for me there.
Yeah, and it's such a process of learning and practicing and seeing what happens when you follow it and seeing what happens when you don't. But the idea is that like our mind is not really designed to be a reliable source, reliable way to make decisions. And it's not to say our mind isn't powerful, because it's crazy powerful. It just like can often convince us in or out of any decision.
Yeah.
And so some of the other examples, there's some people like me that are emotional that need to sleep on things and give themselves time before they commit. There's no truth in the now for those people. There are some people who are what we call splenic. These people are super intuitive. It's different than the gut response. They're kind of designed to trust their like intuition in the moment. So very different than the emotional people. These people are meant to be super spontaneous, incredibly impulsive, and just kind of listen to this like whisper they feel in the moment. There's some people that need to talk things out. These people are called self-projected and kind of allow themselves to verbally process. And by literally just like speaking, their truth will literally just plop out. There's some people who are all about being in the right environment and the right space and then kind of talking things out in that space. There's some people who are meant to like ask themselves, like, is my heart really in this decision? Like, because when my heart's in it, I can literally move mountains and anything's possible. But like if my heart's not in it, it's not going to happen. And then like your reflector friend we talked about, there are some people that are really meant to give themselves that full lunar cycle, those full 20, 30 days before they commit to a big decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really helpful. Again, it just makes things so much easier now. It's like, okay, if I'm in a situation where I have to make a decision, I am going to go to my gut. I am going to go to that place. Another friend of mine, she's very into human design as well. And she recommended to me, she's like, notice what sounds you make. And I thought that was really helpful, because there are times where I'll say like, or no, like she's like, notice your gut sound reactions.
The gut one is really audible. It's like often like
as I just agree with you that way.
Exactly. And you can often hear it in kids, like in baby generators or manifesting generators. It's so like unbridled and like just a noise they're making. But like then often people are conditioned and feel less permission. That's part of the value of asking really specific questions, because it just kind of connects to this like this, or like just feeling that your body is like opening or contracting towards something.
Yeah,
contracting away.
That's interesting. I even text sounds to people. Like I'll respond to a text like or ah, like, and I didn't realize I do that, but I do. It's almost like my way of like letting them know I'm making this noise now.
So good.
As part of it. So that's really cool. So one of the things I love to share with my guests on here is just, what's going on outside of the human design world, or something interesting that's happened to you that you want to kind of share with us, just so we get a little peek into your world.
One thing that I was like really moved by recently is I have like a really beautiful community in New York, and I kind of like happened upon this community very early on. And a lot of them are just very entrepreneurial and kind of doing their own thing, and just like inspired me from very early on that like just like anything's possible, and to kind of like really and there are obviously limitations, but just the power of like really charting our own path. And a couple of them celebrated their birthdays recently, and they had just sold a company and like been really successful. And so they like took all their friends to Colombia for their birthday, which was just like the coolest experience of just like being really successful and then just like immediately transferring that into this like extreme act of generosity and being like, how can we just create such an experience for the people that we love? And I think it was just such a cool reminder for me of just like how interlinked all of our success is, and how supported I feel by these people, but also like how much it's like, oh, I succeed. I want to make sure that like everyone in my life is benefiting. So it was just such a cool experience, and just such a wild experience to have a friend be like, I'm just going to treat you to like a vacation. It's like, what? Really? So.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. It's so beautiful. And it's such a great reminder. So many individuals that listen to this show are also entrepreneurs, or in a space where they would love to see their dreams, the work that they really are passionate about, become more of a full-time thing. And to remember, like, we all are tapping into this together, and the more that we support each other, the more that we find our circles where opportunities like that can happen, it's just
totally
just becomes so much more expansive.
And it's also just like a journey. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
that's obviously like such a high moment, but like these two women have like literally been through it in all the ways, like been just like taken down like in all the ways and also been incredibly successful. And like even when I think about my human design journey, it's like it's not like I like started doing human design and then I was like, I'm successful. This is amazing. Like it's been like such a journey. I like gave up on it. I like did another. It's just like it's been so wild. And I think just like really having to trust in ourselves and trusting our inner authority to be like, you know what, like I know this doesn't totally make sense right now, but I'm going to keep cultivating this thing because I know at some point people are going to be ready for it. And at some point it's going to be possible for me to do this in a full-time way. And like, until then, I am going to just like make it work and do as much as I can on the side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's very similar to my journey as well. What was it that when you were like, I'm going to give up and you did something else, what was that?
So I built a company with my former business partner and first teacher for 2 years. And then it was just like, and it was like so fun, but it was also just like people weren't ready for it. And I had met these founders in New York because I met them because they loved human design.
Mm-hmm.
And they were opening three big buildings in New York, beautiful, conscious co-working, co-living spaces. And so they met me and they were just like, we need you to be on the team. I was like, no, wait, I have a thing, I'm trying, but it's really hard. And so they ended up hiring me and I kind of curated all their programming and teachers and practitioners and helped open the three buildings in New York. But it was like, and it was such a thing where I was like, am I giving up my dream? But then like being there is literally what like served as the foundation for my company, because like not only was my job curating all the programming and the events, but they were like, okay, let's start bringing human design to all the members, let's integrate it with all the teams. And like I had a schedule there where like I would start my days at 2 p.m. and see all my clients in the morning, and like I literally like build my business from that space and with their support. And then like when it just became like way too much to handle both, I was able to leave and do it all. But I think it was like so unexpected because part of me was like, I'm giving up, but like I just didn't realize that like that was exactly what I needed to like actually serve as the platform through which I could build this into a sustainable business.
Yeah, it became so pivotal. And that's such a great reminder for so many individuals that are wondering, like, wait a minute, like this job just came at me, but I feel like it has nothing to do with what I'm trying to do, or I feel like it's going to get in the way. And it's an opportunity to really sit with it and say, perhaps this is coming through because it's going to provide leverage, some kind of pivotal opportunity, some individual I'll meet, who knows, that will redirect my journey in a way that brings me to where I always thought I was going to go.
Yeah. And I think also this is part of the magic of the inner authority in human design, because like when you trust your inner authority, it's really scary
Mm-hmm.
because you actually have no idea where it's going to take you. With your gut response, you're like, you know what, this thing feels right. Who knows why? And like, I don't know. I'll probably know why in a year or so. And so I think there's really something magic about surrendering to it, because it just means like when you make one aligned decision at a time, it's going to take you literally all the way there, and it's not like figuring it out or architecting your future. It's just like staying in alignment in every moment and every decision that you're making. And so I think that could be so empowering, where like I took it and I was like, I don't even know where this is going to take me or what's going to happen. And then I was like, wait, this is the most amazing platform in the world. Like they're the most supportive. I feel so recognized. I'm so empowered to be a projector. Let's go, So I think it's important to kind of tune into and make sure that decision is coming from that real inner authority place.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. So as I mentioned before, like there's no way we're going to be able to unpack all of this, but if there's anything else around human design or what we've shared so far that you feel would resonate with someone listening, I'd love for you to offer that as we start to wind down.
I think that like if you do some research, you'll realize that human design is crazy complicated and there's so much information, but just know that like the intention is not to inundate you. It's to really give you tools to like integrate into your life. So I'd really start with the type and the strategy and the authority that we've talked through today. I think one area that really is interesting to explore is so many things.
I know.
Okay. So is your open center. So I was going to say your open center is your profile. They're both crazy important, but like, if you look at your human design chart, you'll kind of see these different colors and these white centers, and basically the areas that are colored in is kind of where you're drawing your energy from. And the areas that are white are the areas where you're most open and sensitive to kind of taking in other people's energy. And we can't go through those all, but they're just really helpful to look at, because I think that it can help you know, like, what am I taking in that's not mine? And like, how can I make sure that I don't make decisions from those more inconsistent places of myself? Like I mentioned, one for you is like a real sensitivity to like other people's emotions, and so knowing that. So it's like, if you're starting to feel super emotional or touchy or overwhelmed, just like really checking in and be like, is this mine?
Mm-hmm.
Actually amplify and like my friends or my partners or what's happening in the collective or whatever it is, or someone else's, And so just starting to kind of understand those areas in your life so that you aren't kind of making decisions from them.
Yeah, that's really important. And what's interesting, what just came through too, because I resonate with that very much. And I resonate from the space of, for my own personal self, but then I resonate with it from the space of like when I'm speaking. I love the fact that I can walk into a room and tap into everybody's emotions and speak from that place. So it also becomes my superpower.
It is your superpower. And that's the magic part about it, is like, even with that center specifically, it's like I have 3, my partner has that. I have 2 dear friends who have it like wide open like you, and they're all writing books on emotional intelligence right now. You know what I mean? Because they're just like, you know what? I can experience the full range of like the emotional experience and like speak to that. And so like, and that makes them available to it because they're so empathic and so sensitive. And so all those areas that are open are both the areas where we can get really, taken off track a little bit if we don't know how to discern between what's ours and what's not. But ultimately it's like where we're in school and where we're here to be incredibly wise. And so it's not how to really fully leverage those things.
Yeah, that's really important. Okay, so checking that out too. And again, I think the blueprint that you create is very helpful for all this if you're new, or even if you're not new and I probably need to get one, because I'm in the space where I'm like, I kind of can sense things, but I could probably, I know I can use so much more intel as a tool. So.
Yeah, we could all benefit.
Yeah. All right, well, let me know that promo code.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else that you feel is important?
I don't think so. It's such a pleasure to be here. It's been so lovely talking to you.
I know. I loved our conversation. I feel so much more comfortable with human design. I didn't even realize that I felt discomfort, but after talking with you, I'm like, oh, I feel, just much more in tune with it all. And I love the way that you're able to teach from that place. And you absolutely executed what we talked about earlier about making this approachable and modern in our everyday life. I really felt that come through. So thank you.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. That means so much to hear.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So we mentioned the blueprint. How else can individuals stay in touch with you?
So I'm basically Erin Claire Jones everywhere. So you can find me at Erin Claire Jones on Instagram. My website is erinclairejones.com. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. I have my blueprint offering. I also do one-on-one sessions with individuals, couples, partners, all the things. And then also work with teams as well.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, Erin, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And I'm so glad that we got to connect through this.
Me too. So good.
Yay. So tell me, did you love this episode? While I may not need your validation, I certainly love it. So go ahead and make sure that you are following or subscribed or have reviewed this podcast in whatever app you listen to. And let's support the show by supporting each other. Share this out with a friend or someone that you know would just love to have a juicy listen. I adore you. You're amazing. Thank you.